can I just say one thing firstly? I love the name Eat, Sleep, Boxing, Repeat.
ESBR Boxing. We're back, myself and Paul Kelly. That means one thing and one thing only. We are here in preview mode. We're previewing a fight that's taking place down in the lightweight division. Bit of British interest here. A fight that's taking place in Doncaster. Obviously, a place that's also dear to Paul's heart. Maybe he'll give us his thoughts on Doncaster as well as this fight at some point, obviously, over the course of this video. But Paul, thank you very much for joining me. We are talking, of course, Maxi Hughes versus Archie Sharp. As I said, taking place at lightweight fight taking place in Doncaster. So, first of all, I want to get your thoughts, your predictions of this fight. I think, Maxi Hughes is a guy that obviously has been active, not necessarily coming off some good wins. Obviously, Gary Cully lost, obviously, Zepeda, lost to Cambosis, so has campaigned at a high level. Archie Sharp, a guy whose stock was very high at one point, then had a kind of bit of an absence. No one necessarily knew what was happening with him, talk about contract disputes, etc., etc. How do you see this fight, Paul, going? What are your thoughts, Paul? Please give us your prediction.
Yeah, thanks for having me on as always, mate. And looking forward to this one. I think keep it short and sweet. I think the Cambosis fight, Maxi Hughes was robbed in my eyes. Getting knocked out by Zepeda, like everyone was getting knocked out up until those two Tevin Farmer fights Zepeda had. He's obviously fighting Shakur Stevenson next, so that tells you his level. And then coming back, Gary Cully, a limited fighter maybe, but there was a lot of hype surrounding him at one point. Maxi Hughes beat him. Let's be honest, arguably won every round. I could see him doing something similar to Archie Sharp. Maybe not as one-sided, but I'm fairly confident Maxi Hughes gets this done on points, to be honest with you, mate. I think he's a great fighter. So enjoying such an Indian summer in his career, kind of like a lot of his losses did come early on against fighters now who you would look at and think, you know what, actually I would back you to beat them now at this stage. But he didn't at that stage. And it's a big night at the Keep Mode, obviously, as a Rotherham fan. I'm not too keen on Doncaster Rovers FC, but as a Dave Allen super fan, I am also very keen on Doncaster in a way as well. So no, mate, I'm looking forward to this card. I think Maxi Hughes gets the job done on points, but maybe not completely one sided. I think Archie Sharp, he's a good boxer. I think he's quite tidy, but I do believe Maxi Hughes is a level above.
Yeah, I actually fully agree with the points you picked up there as well. I think with Maxi Hughes, you look at those losses to likes of Ward, Bowen, Walsh, you think, hold on a second, this guy's just got a certain level. But then obviously the Galahad, John O'Carroll wins are on there. Those are good wins. And like you say, very, very competitive fight against Cambosis, which many had him winning. So I think you almost got to go, Maxi Hughes has kind of fought at the high level. Archie Sharp for me, there's kind of worrying that, he came back last time out, lost to sort of Ryan Garner as well. So I'm kind of sitting there going, probably not the sort of level that we expected Archie Sharp to be at one point. Probably not a good time for him to fight someone like Maxi Hughes. Maxi Hughes, again, as you say, not necessarily a big puncher, obviously 6 KOs in 28 wins, so not a big puncher, but I think I'm fully on board train here with you, Paul. I'm going Maxi Hughes points on this one, and I think it'll be sort of fairly convincing Maxi Hughes points as well. 8-4 sort of territory for me, for Maxi Hughes, so convincing we are aligned on our prediction on this one. So if you want to head off to the bookies with your slip and tell them the preview show, advise you to get your last tenner on Maxi Hughes points, and please do feel free to do that, but gamble responsibly. Paul, let's talk a bit about Maxi Hughes. Obviously, we mentioned him obviously there against Cambosis, obviously against Zepeda as well. Do you think there's a version of Maxi Hughes or an opportunity for Maxi Hughes to win a version of a world lightweight title? Do you think well, let me ask you 2 questions. Do you think he'll A, fight for one? B, do you think he can win one?
I think it's one of them where Maxi Hughes is at a certain level, but when you go up to the upper echelons of the world level and the world scene at 135 pounds, you're like, it's a massive, massive ask when you look at the fighters that are around there. As I mentioned, if you have Zepeda, for example, as just on the fringe level, back below the likes of Shakur, Tank, Lomachenko, if he's not retired, like Maxi Hughes isn't beating any of them, is he? And that's no disgrace at all. Like those are such stellar names that you're thinking, right here, right now, I can't personally see him winning a world title at lightweight, particularly at 35 years of age as well. But could he win a European version? I think we've seen worse fighters win European titles. They obviously had that IBO belt for a while, so whether you give that any credibility, could he win that and maybe call himself world champion? Yeah. But in terms of the 4, I suppose, legitimate belts, maybe the Ring Magazine belt against those top fighters at lightweight, it's a no from me, unfortunately.
Yeah, people obviously want contention on these sort of videos, but I couldn't with a straight face disagree with anything you said there. I totally agree with you. I think, like you say, you mentioned the names in and around that division, stacked division as it is, and you see you've also got that loss to Zepeda, who's beyond, beneath, obviously, the likes of Shakur, Tank, Keyshawn Davis, arguably as well, Lomachenko. So you're looking at those sort of names and going, I don't see Maxi Hughes being able to compete, unfortunately, with those sort of names. But again, like you say, you could drop down European level, definitely. Maybe like you say, the IBO definitely chance there, but not in the legitimate sort of the four king sort of belts as it were. But let's touch on Archie Sharp because we mentioned in a previous video Owen McKendry. I'm going to bring him up here again because Owen McKendry, at the outlet, is a guy who likes to call for retirement. Archie Sharp, if he loses here, do you see some of that sort of potential retirement sentiment creeping in? 30 years old, obviously, down that division now. Not obviously old, but, as you sort of get into the kind of Max Hughes age, obviously, you're sort of talking about those divisions being tough to maintain that weight, obviously, the older you get. But where do you see Archie Sharp kind of going here? They never lost to Garney, they never lost to Maxi Hughes. Where do you see him rebuilding, or do you see it being potentially time to McKendry, as it were?
I think it depends what his aspirations are, really, because, yeah, on the surface, back-to-back defeats wouldn't look too good, I suppose, on paper. But there would only be if he was to lose this fight, that would only be only two defeats. He does have some good wins in there. Like Ryan Garner's a good fighter and Maxi Hughes is a good fighter. But interestingly, this is obviously also his first fight at lightweight as well. So was one of the reasons that he lost to Ryan Garner wide enough? Was he really struggling at 130? That could have been a problem. So he could get a new lease of life here at lightweight. I'm not calling for the McKendry retirement here at all from Archie Sharp. No, he's still a young man. He's only 30 years of age. And, just because you're losing the fighters of Maxi Hughes who are maybe above that British European level doesn't mean to say that you need to hang up the gloves. He can definitely still be in good fights, good domestic fights. And that's where I see the future land for Archie Sharp. I'd like to see him in some big domestic fights.
Yeah, I can't disagree with anything you're saying. I'd like to see him in domestic fights as well. I think the interesting thing for me is that Archie Sharp wasn't a big puncher at super feather, and coming up a division as well. I feel like you've got to wonder how he's going to fare against some of the better names in this division. Again, we're saying Maxi Hughes isn't going to be able to fare against top upper echelon names in this division, and we're both picking Maxi Hughes to beat Archie Sharp. So really, we're by inference of that saying we don't expect Archie Sharp to compete with those guys either. So again, like you say, I suppose for me it'd be about kind of domestic fights. The biggest sort of domestic money fight you can make kind of around that sort of level, maybe European level. I mean, the Ryan Garner fight, was for an interim title, I believe. No, international WWC international title. So again, kind of like pick up maybe something equivalent to that or beneath that, but don't sort of get in there with some of the guys at the top of the division because it's only going to go one way, unfortunately. But Paul, thank you very much for joining me. Guys, thank you very much also for watching. Check out the channel. Obviously, all your boxing needs are up and under one roof. Obviously, reviews, previews, big fight breakdowns, all of that good stuff. And we'll be back, myself and Paul, later on in the month to discuss more of the sort of previews for the fights that are upcoming. Thank you very much for joining me, I said. And always, Paul, thank you very much for joining me as well.
Thanks, mate. All the best. Absolute pleasure.